Chief Commissioner, thank you for joining 10 News First.
Sure.
Tell me, are you concerned about trust in Victoria Police eroding because of the way this lockdown is persisting and the fact that people, while they want to follow the rules, it's getting to a stage where people are getting tired, fatigued, and perhaps maybe your members personally feel that too?
Oh, look, the public trust that's everything to us. I mean, we exist through the public trust. We've got the laws that allow us to do what we want, but the reality is it's the trust and confidence of the public that allows us to do our job, and we're totally reliant on that. So when you say, am I concerned about the erosion of public trust, I don't think it's anywhere near that. We still have a high public confidence, a high public trust, and a great engagement with the community, but there's no doubt the roles we've been asked to do over the since March last year have certainly taken some small chinks off that. There's no doubt about that. I mean, policing over people fighting in supermarkets over toilet paper, a range of different things, the infringements we've had to go out. So, in brief, I'm concerned that we maintain the public confidence, the public trust. I don't think it's eroded, but there's been some impacts on it because of things we've had to do, and that includes demonstrations as well.
It's not necessarily the police's fault, isn't it? You're basically enforcing the rules that the government set.
Yeah, I'd like $1 for every time I've said in a press conference or to other people, we're just simply enforcing the CHO's rules, the CHO's directions, the Chief Health Officer. And that's the reality. We don't get to pick and choose what we enforce. We're required to do it. And it is the biggest game in town. I mean, if there's no consequence, there has to be a consequence so that people who are doing the wrong thing are held to account, so that the vast majority who are doing the right thing, know that there is an accountability mechanism there. From a Victoria Police perspective, it's here to stay for the foreseeable future. We've set these commands up as a minimum until the end of 22. It's an interesting use of splinter group and different groups of individuals who, from what I've seen, have displayed a fair degree of arrogance and selfishness. It is concerning. We've seen so-called sovereign citizens who claim to secede from the state when it's convenient for them. We've seen anti-vaxxers, we've seen a whole lot of people who are anti-government, and it's very concerning. I mean, for several months at a time, we were having to deploy 600-700 people, police officers, to demonstrations, and then we saw the most recent demonstration a couple of weeks ago, which was, from what I'm told from those experienced officers on the ground, one of the most violent demonstrations they've been involved in 20 years.
We want to be one country! One country! Here we go!
And the use of force and the threats, and to exacerbate it, it didn't just stop at the finish and the conclusion of that day. We then had follow-up threats made to those officers by these groups, personally. So, and we charged some of them with intimidating law enforcement officers. I mean, Victoria Police, apart from being the sporting capital of the world, I think Victoria is the protest capital of the world because we have so many, and we're always happy to facilitate peaceful protest when it's appropriate.
Well, so protesting is not unlawful. It's a human right.
The risk of the spread is too great, and so now's not the time. Now's not the time when they should be protesting, so it's terribly concerning to me, and it's selfish, arrogant behaviour.
Fresh air and sunlight are not only essential for maintaining some sanity during lockdown, they're also helping to keep us safe. While busy beaches and packed parks might seem like a COVID risk, there hasn't been a single case of outdoor transmission since the pandemic began.
A beach walk taking the kids to the park, getting a run in around the bay, even lying down in the sun having a cup of coffee or a drink. These photos might not look like Sydney is taking lockdown seriously, But when you look at the science, there has not been one case in New South Wales, even Australia, where someone has caught the virus outdoors.
What we've seen as characteristic of this pandemic is that COVID does not spread very easily outside, particularly if you can maintain that social distancing.
The fresh air disperses and dilutes virus particles, making it very difficult to transmit with any strength, and the liquid droplets that carry COVID evaporate in the outdoors.
There's a lot of fresh air, basically, which means any droplets, aerosols disperse further, but also there's protective factors in air, everything from ozone to hydrogen peroxide.
That's why, regardless of the fears, there was no transmission from Black Lives Matter protests in Australia.
Our next major protest that's anticipated, that I've been briefed on, is this Saturday coming. We are contemplating all avenues available to us in terms of securing the city to make sure that access is restricted as much as possible. Part of that consideration is the transport network and weighing up whether we can and should lock that down to prohibit the violence that we saw and the potential mass spread of COVID-19.
We talk about integrity for a moment, because I know you take a big stance on bad eggs in the force or bad cops. Are you confident that your members are getting the message from you that they need to uphold their integrity and follow the rules?
Yeah, I am. By and large, the majority of our police officers, all employees, do the right thing day in, day out against often very challenging and confrontational circumstances. By and large, they're brilliant. But for those few who don't do the right thing, we are holding them to account. And I've been very, very, very clear about, it's a term used, the line in the sand. There's no sand here because nothing's shifting. This is a line that's on concrete. It's quite clear. The expectations are there and members know what my expectations are, and that is conduct yourself professionally, conduct yourself appropriately, and do the right thing. Having said that, I've been very clear to them. If they act in good faith and they make a mistake, but they're trying to do the right thing, I'll back them 1,000%. So, yeah, I think by and large our members get it right most of the time, but on the occasion where if they make a mistake, we'll support them. But if there's any deliberate criminality or deliberate misconduct, well, that's a different issue, and I will hold them to account.